Have I lost my sense of wonder? Do you remember as a child how everything was new and sparkly and evoked a sense of wonder? Yeah? Well, I don't. My memory of my childhood is pretty fractured. I don't really remember very much at all from before I was about 8 years old. I was 8 when we left the UK and migrated here to Australia, and that was a kind of watershed moment for me. There's a before and after, and I can't really remember very much of the before. I remember some things, of course, but if I recall my predominant feelings as a child, anxiety probably comes out on top. The anxious child grew into an anxious adult. Why was I anxious? Well, mainly, I'm sorry to say, because I was always worried that I was going to get in trouble with my mother. She was always a very anxious woman herself, and she communicated that to me. But specifically, she was always worried about what the neighbours would think, particularly if I was making too much noise. So I tried to make myself as quiet and invisible as possible. Not always very successfully, unfortunately. So, no, wonder was not a big part of my childhood. There were still moments, though. The night sky always filled me with wonder. But let's just pause for a moment and think about what wonder actually is. There are a couple of dictionary definitions, but the one that I have in mind is this: rapt attention or astonishment at something awesomely mysterious or new to one's experience. Awesomely mysterious. I like that. It doesn't sound very dictionary-ish. Awesomely mysterious. But it captures the experience I'm thinking of. The night sky was, for me, awesomely mysterious. So, wonder and awe are closely related. Even to me, as a small boy, less than 8 years old, I remember, because this was back in the UK, particularly when I was out at night walking with my father. The vastness of the night sky was obvious. The beauty was obvious. So, beauty, mystery, awe, and wonder. These things are all related. And this sense of wonder under the night sky stayed with me at least into my late teens and possibly into my early 20s. I remember as a teenage boy here in Australia being given a reflector telescope. For Christmas, I think it may have been one of my birthdays. My parents could occasionally surprise me with a gift like that. I would spend hours at night. I'd even sleep outside at night so that I could wake up early in the morning and see a sky that I hadn't seen before, didn't usually see anyway. I would remember seeing the rings of Saturn, the Galilean moons of Jupiter, the red spot, the Andromeda galaxy. Of course, for me, it all became also a little bit sciency. So I acquired a filter that I could put over the viewpiece and observe the sun, and I daily tracked the sunspots on the sun's surface. I certainly owe this sense of wonder largely to my father, much as I owe my sense of anxiety, unfortunately, to my mother. So, is this sense of wonder still with me today? If so, what triggers it? We live in strange times when we have access to so much information. We can, virtually, go anywhere and see anything. I suspect that this kind of sensory overload can somewhat dull our sense of wonder. When there's so much to see, it becomes much more difficult to filter out the noise and to spot what's special, to spot what is awesomely mysterious. Nevertheless, the wonders of the cosmos can still hit me from time to time. I'm sure you've all seen this image, the pillars of creation in the Eagle Nebula, taken by the Hubble telescope, and this more recent image taken by the James Webb Space Telescope. Not only is this structure spectacularly and awesomely beautiful, it's also awesomely huge. They're 7,000 light years away from us. The leftmost pillar is about 4 light years long, which is actually about the same distance as from here to the nearest star, apart from our sun, of course. This cloud of dust and hydrogen is an active star-forming region. Stars are being born there at this very moment. It's difficult not to feel a sense of wonder when looking at and contemplating something like this. Wow, seems like an appropriate response. So, I'm glad to say that has remained with me. Are there other things? Well, there's this. This is a tardigrade, seen under an electron microscope. So, from the awesomely massive to the awesomely tiny. They're usually about half a millimetre long when fully grown. They have 8 legs ending in claws. They have a clearly defined head. Some of the larger species may have up to 40,000 cells in their body, but some have as few as about 1,000 cells. Consider that an adult female human being has about 28 trillion cells in their body, and a male has 36 trillion cells. A tardigrade may only have 1,000. Yet tardigrades still manage to have a brain and other complex organs. They even have eye spots. They're also very hardy little buggers. They can survive exposure to extreme temperatures, extremes in pressure, both high and low. They can survive air deprivation, radiation, dehydration, starvation. They usually only live for a few months, maybe up to a couple of years, some of the bigger species, but they can remain in a kind of half-dead dormant state for up to 30 years, at least. I suspect we may find that that's much longer. I believe that in this dormant state, they can survive in outer space or on the surface of the moon. So, way to go, tardigrades. Aren't they wonderful? Or perhaps it should be us who are filled with wonder about these unseen creatures which live among us. I know it frightens people, but something else that fills me with wonder is the idea of genuine artificial intelligence. In fact, artificial consciousness. The idea that with enough complexity in an artificial system, genuine consciousness might actually emerge. Although this may be a controversial point of view, and although the nature of our consciousness is still a wide open question, I believe that our consciousness is an emergent property, that it emerges from the complexity of our brains. I think it would be wonderful if consciousness also emerged one day from the complexity of an artificial neural network. And I think it would place an enormous responsibility on us in terms of our response to that. I'm less concerned about what these newly conscious beings might do to us than what we might do to them. Anyway, I think my sense of wonder lives on, though it needs a jolt from a defibrillator now and then. Even though I don't have many memories of wonder from my childhood, I'm glad that this part of my inner child has found a way to survive.